If you've got children or were ever once a child, you may have wondered what would it be like to be on a big stage? What would it be like to be a child star, to start a career in entertainment that would take you on to become one of the legends of the silver screen? Not that they probably call it that anyway. Our next guest runs a talent agency that puts kids, adults, stars, actors onto the big screen, but also deals with the parents that don't agree with the choices that get made in the casting. And he's got an incredible story, got incredible insights, and also he's got an incredible new show. You do not want to miss this. And that's why next on Speak on Stage, we bring to you the incredible Adam Jacobs. Welcome to Speak on Stage with Dave Crane, the podcast where we unpack the art and science of public speaking to help you command the stage with confidence and authority. I'm your host, Dave Crane, and as a seasoned speaker, coach, and entertainer, I've had the privilege of helping thousands of individuals like you to unlock their true potential on stage all around the world. Each week, we'll bring you candid conversations with industry experts, successful speakers, and thought leaders, delving into proven strategies, practical tips, and personal anecdotes to empower you to become a captivating communicator. So whether you're a seasoned pro looking to refine your skills or a beginner taking your first steps onto the stage, this podcast is your go-to resource for mastering the craft of public speaking. So grab your notepad, open your mind, and get ready to amplify your impact as we embark on this journey together. Welcome to Speak on Stage with Dave Crane. Together, let's jump and grow wings on the way down. Adam, how are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
It's amazing to have. We've got so much to talk about. Before I actually start with all the questions, of which I've got about 1 million written down here, can we start off by giving your background in the entertainment business? You run Bubblegum Casting, and there's an incredible story behind how Bubblegum Casting, he said, put his teeth back in, it's been a long week, came about. Can you share that with us?
Well, yeah. So firstly, I own Bubblegum Casting and Hunter Talent. So Bubblegum Casting is the longest running children's talent agency in Australia. We have it on good authority that it's the 5th oldest talent agency in the world. Turns 43 next week. And I own Hunter Talent, which is our grown-up agency. So a grown-up agency, basically...
Wait, stop. So let me stop there. So you've got one of the oldest agencies of all time, which is now 43 years old. That means you would have started it. How old are you now?
I turned 40 in 3 weeks.
I didn't start 3 years before you were born.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. No, I acquired it about 7 years ago, and it wasn't doing that well. I basically bought a website, and I hope in a dream. We now are the dominant junior agency in the country and arguably Asia Pacific. And Hunter is our grown-up agency, which we started off the back of owning the kids agency.
That makes perfect sense. So let's look at the agency. You're running both of them. You got to deal with adults. You got to deal with children. But I know that you got a very personal story about why you decided to get into this industry in the first place, because you're not a natural entertainer. I'm not saying you're not a natural entertainer. You're not a professional entertainer. You prefer to be behind the scenes or behind the camera until now, which is another story. Can you share with us how you came to be in this position?
Yeah, look, it is an interesting story. So I first learned about Bubblegum Casting in 1996 when my sister signed up to the agency. I didn't sign at the time. My sister went on, she was 6 years old. She went on to become one of Australia's most famous young actresses. So she was on a bunch of international television shows. She won an ARIA, which is an Australian equivalent of like a Grammy, before she was 17. She's a very, very famous young actress. So I grew up, her name was Jessica Jacobs. And so I grew up the big brother of this very, very famous young actress. I actually signed up to the agency as a teenager and didn't have any success whatsoever, like zero success. And I think I may have got one background extras gig on Neighbours, and you're from the UK, so I'm fairly familiar with it.
Everybody's on Neighbours.
Everybody's been on Neighbours. Everyone. So I did one day of background extras on Neighbours was my claim to fame. So that was basically, how I learned about it. Now, very tragically, my sister actually passed away some years ago. And my way of memorializing her was to buy her talent agency and try and keep it running. It was a very unusual way, I know, but people are looking when something passes, they're looking for meaning, they're looking to make meaning of something. And for me personally, it was to buy her talent agency. Some people will run a marathon. Some people would get a tattoo. I did the tattoo thing, but I bought her agency and have grown it, 5,000% in 6 years.
Can I ask you, and it's going to be a personal question, when the opportunity came up to buy the talent agency, what did you think that you would be able to do, and what drove you? Obviously, the love for your sister, but that's not the only way you can honor your sister. What was it that made you want to step into that role and look after the next generation of young people?
I'll be honest, I look back on this decision this day that I bought the business and I questioned it as many times. I don't really know what I was thinking. To me, it's like, I'll buy this agency to memorialize my sister. It just seemed to pop into my head. Now, I didn't think that I would run it. So I had two kind of ideas around what I was going to do. I was either going to keep it as a very small agency and I was going to go digital nomad and run the agency from overseas, most likely. But knowing me and my background and my business background before, that was a pretty naive outlook. Like I've had a lot of success in my career before the agency. So then I thought that, okay, I sort of thought maybe I'll build it up. I'll put someone in to run it and then her legacy will continue. And then I'll sort of step away. But the truth is, I don't know why I really did it other than that is the feeling that I wanted to have. Like I wanted to support, like to memorialize her. That was why I did it. That hasn't, that why is different now. Now I'm supporting lots of talent and my why is much more around, the support of my team and my staff and the people we represent. There's always that undercurrent of our why, which is why we really try and act with integrity. But in terms of my business, the why was very unusual. Like my background is, high level digital marketing. I, was head of digital for some of the biggest companies in the world, BP, Target, Uber, like, huge companies. And then I did this. So, and between then I did an e-commerce thing. So, I don't know the why. I know the why now. The why then was the reason. The gap between was probably a whole bunch of different whys. It changed a lot, between, just being the best and being the ultra competitive person that I am, but wanting to see our talent do well. Then, during COVID, instead of, keeping our team employed when I had other opportunities I could have taken, but I chose to keep our team employed. And now it's a little bit different and we're reinventing that why a little bit at the moment. But ultimately it comes down to now, it's like the best talent for the best opportunities. Like we're ultra competitive. We want really good talent. We want them in cool things. We get to call those people up and tell them to book these amazing things. And that's the why. That's why you do this. That's everything.
Thank you. That's a great explanation. And it highlights a lot of things, including the fact that my own personal experience is during COVID, as an entertainer and a speaker, you need a live audience. You are creating something for other people to watch. During the pandemic, that was the best part of say 2 years of almost zero, unless you're broadcasting online. Now, if you're running a talent agency, where the movie industry has come to almost a complete halt. TV has come to almost a complete halt. You can do social distancing TV, which means that you're down to a handful of people in the studio and everybody gets sanitized as soon as they walk out and walk in. That makes for a very difficult time if you're one of the providers. So what decisions did you have to come to enable your staff to still feel motivated, to be able to keep your staff being employed, and also for the many, many people on your books who were no longer able to make a living from being in entertainment? What did you do with them? A lot of questions in one question.
Well, yeah, that's okay. Well, it's an interesting misconception that the entertainment industry wasn't busy. And this is honestly It's hilarious. So our agency is national. We have multiple offices in Australia. So Melbourne, where I'm currently at, where our head office is, Melbourne was one of the hardest lockdowns in the world. Like quite literally, I think top 5 hardest places to be locked down in the whole planet. Whereas, Sydney, they locked down, but it wasn't really that serious. Like, so the entertainment industry in Sydney, for example, New South Wales, and everyone's heard of Sydney, you've got the Opera House, you got the Arches, you got the Bridge. Sydney was booming, absolutely booming. Work from all over the world was flowing into Australia, and Sydney in particular, and New South Wales in particular, the state that Sydney is. And it was actually a bonanza. Like, and that's the funny thing is people go, oh, it must have been so tough. What was tough is the markets that weren't cooking. So Melbourne was basically a disaster. And, you had to sort of explain to talent, there's nothing there. Like we can't get you anything because there is nothing. You know what I mean? Like we're not, excluding you from opportunity. There's nothing here. If you want a lot of work, go to Sydney. It's a bonanza. Like it's a gold rush in the entertainment industry. We shot content for the Dallas Cowboys in Sydney. We shot Walgreens. So we shot brands that didn't even operate in Australia in Sydney because they were flying over. We shot feature films and all sorts of stuff. So the social distancing was real, but the permits around doing it in New South Wales are pretty easy. Queensland as well started to boom. There's always been a lot of people who've shot, a lot of stuff in Queensland, but Queensland booms. Perth, which traditionally has been a very quiet entertainment market in Australia, it boomed. Melbourne was terrible. So our business actually built, got quite busy. We actually grew quite a lot during that period. But what was hard was that Melbourne, where our head office was, where most of the lion's share of our staff were, they were basically like just supporting other markets. They were all working from home and keeping them motivated was quite challenging. But it was the growth of the other markets that kept everyone engaged. But then obviously the tough bit was, they say Melbourne was really difficult. People didn't book work for 2 years. And, a lot of people left the industry and they basically gave up on their dreams, as you would after 2 years. 2 years unemployed is a very long time. Like, that's essentially 2 years in a prison, basically, as well. So a lot of people left Melbourne for their opportunities, but it was very, very stressful. And then you also had things like, you still had rent, you still had offices, you still had things that you were paying in markets that weren't making any money. And I remember one day I was like, man, other markets are booming. We have no money coming in the Melbourne market. And that's where all of our staff and our offices, our big offices are. It was very stressful still for us. It wasn't like as horrible as people think, but it was definitely challenging. And there was a lot of sleepless nights over, what if other places start to think or behave like Melbourne has been? Like I basically, I reckon I probably aged 50 years in that 2 years, and I'll probably die any day now. But, it was very stressful. And for my personal, experience of it, it was quite an unusual one. We had to get to Sydney to operate the Sydney business. And in order to do so, we couldn't fly directly to Sydney. So we had to fly in a huge horseshoe around and go to 5 other cities to get to Sydney from Melbourne, which is a hour-and-a-half flight. But we had to spend 3.5 weeks to get to Sydney. Yes. Yes.
That's ridiculous. What? Just purely because there weren't enough flights to cover it? Is that what it was?
No, because of the quarantine rules.
Of course. So you had to stay in a hotel, wait until they give you the pass. No, go on, tell me. I'm fascinated by what.
No, 3 weeks. We went to a location in the middle of Australia in the desert, it used to be a mining camp. Right. It was basically like a low budget Club Med. And we did not quarantine like other people. We were out, we were in the sun, we had a pool. It wasn't that expensive. It's actually cheaper than Sydney hotel quarantine, but it was way, way better. So that's why we did it that way. And also you weren't getting guaranteed on. So, my wife, she's now my wife. She was my girlfriend at the time. We either had the choice between separate rooms, so we wouldn't see each other for several weeks, or one room together. And let's be real, in a hotel room, like neither of those are, they're both suboptimal options.
Yeah.
Whereas at what I came to refer to as low budget Club Med, or Howard Springs is what it was actually called, was pretty good, had ultra quick Wi-Fi, so we could work the whole time. And we had separate rooms, but we were able to co-mingle and hang out. So it was actually pretty good because we had our own beds, we had our own rooms, but we could hang out and co-mingle with, a bunch of other people. So it was really good networking for the firm as well, interestingly, which no one ever believes me, but it was.
I'm so jealous. You won the lottery for COVID to go to an incredible resort with your girlfriend, decide, what we can share, and then have lots of people to hang out with while swimming in the pool, which should have been sanitized every 2 days or whatever, but somehow just got away with it. That's amazing. But the thing is,
in the desert. So it was beautiful, hot. It was a hot place with beautiful pool.
Amazing. But the thing is, and I mean, I'm so glad that you and your missus, what's your wife's name now?
Alex.
Alex. So you and Alex, when you decide to cohabit with a girlfriend, those arguments you have are always the ones that make you say, I am never going to see you again for the rest of your life. Get out. You can't do that in quarantine. You have to resolve. I'm not surprised you're married, because you would have made decisions that most people just don't bother making. Just go, okay, we'll deal with that. And then before you know it, it's perfect.
Well, her business was, my wife she's now an executive in our company, but at the time she was an executive for Live Nation. So they were doing it really tough.
Yeah.
And so she was started to get to Sydney as well. And they were doing it really, really tough, as you can imagine, no live events.
Yep.
And so she was an executive for them. So we managed to use that experience to poach her into our business as well. So in terms of our business working together is there's some challenges there, but we're married and we're stuck together in the business. So
there you go. That's the happiest COVID story I've ever heard. So congratulations, you won the pandemic lottery. So let's go further on. Let's now look at the actual television view of the industry. In fact, I want to go back a little bit before we look at your new TV show and talk about the fact that what do you do when kids go for auditions? And it's true for adults as well, but more so for kids, because you've got the parents on your case. They go for an audition, which, let's face it, is a toss of a coin in the air, and it depends on what the director's looking for. It might be you, might not be you. They might already have their family involved in it. Doesn't matter. But the point is, the parents then blame you. And if it happens enough times, you're killing the kid's career. But you're not.
Mm-hmm.
You are only putting them in front of something that's potential. How do you deal with that kind of pressure? And what would your advice be for parents and even people who are looking to get into entertainment in some direction about dealing with rejection and the challenges of a long career starting from zero?
Look, I think that's firstly, you've got to be resilient. The entertainment industry is one of the hardest industries in the world. And there's just a real lack of resilience now that I sort of see. We've, from parents, they want to see their children do well. They want to see them do well, and that's okay. What we do now is it's more about thoroughly vetting them at the start of the application process to make sure that they're the absolute right people for us and that they're going to meet our values. Now, do we get it wrong? Sometimes we do, yes. But we instill in our team now a really important message around, do we want to work with this person in a year or 2 years? Because, our team's got a bit cavalier before, like, oh, we'll sign them, they're cool, we'll get them, and then they're terrible. And the red flags are really there already, but the team's just like, whatever, it's easier to say yes than it is to say no. We don't want to deal with the rejection, so we'll just say yes. So let's break this down into a few things. Before we implemented this, and still to sometimes, when a parent is unhappy about their child not booking work, there is no one meaner or more spiteful in the history of anything I have ever done. And there's, when we're hiring staff, we will literally say, we will literally say, you be careful because a parent will probably make you cry at least once. Like, we will say that as part of the actual recruitment of staff process. So then how do we handle it now? We've got a code of conduct. We're very particular about instilling the right messaging and thing, and being very, very clear. We don't necessarily, you may not book anything. There are chances that you may miss out on opportunities. There's a chance that you may never book anything. And because of that, we're finding that people are sort of censoring themselves out. But ultimately, it does come down to a level of patience and information. So you want to over-inform people to make sure that they really understand the key messaging. Now, from a marketing perspective, I'm sure you've heard this as well. You need to hear some messaging 6 to 12 times to convert. Well, this also applies to understanding a concept. Some people need to hear a concept 6 to 12 times to really understand everything. So we over-inform our talent of what the industry is really about, and we thoroughly vet them. Like we really, it's a very rigorous vetting process. So that's the first thing. Now, in terms of what we say to people, it's like, well, you've got to be patient. Like, do you really think you're going to be successful straight away? Like no one is. Like no one with longevity gets famous. You can be a flash in the pan, 15 minutes of fame. Or if you want a career, where we say this to our grown-ups as well, you have to work at this every day. And, are they doing the things they need to do necessary to get the opportunities? It's always our fault when they don't book them. But are they actually doing the things that they need to be doing? So are they in training and development? Are they getting their auditions done on time? There's all these things, right? So where I sort of think is you have to understand that part of the job that you're just going to be on the receiving end of fairly regular, and it is abuse, right? But you have to just know that that's the case, and you just got to have that, in you. And we just basically really preach around that. And obviously, people still slip through the cracks. You still see some people who are disappointed and they take it out on you. We're all guilty of doing that, right? Like, being a bit grumpy or tired and taking it out on someone. I'm like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. But we receive it, and obviously like anyone else. So we have to encourage our team to understand it's not personal. Well, sometimes it is literally personal, but we encourage them to take it personally. And then also we really instill with resilience, doing the right thing and seeing this as a long-term thing. It's harder for the parents too, because a lot of them think, I just want to give this a crack for a year with my child and see how they go. And then even if they've been successful, they might be like, nah, okay, we don't want to do it. But obviously with our grown-ups, it's very much like, take a long-term look at this. If this is what you really want, you have to look at this as a long-term play. And this is a career. Careers are decades, so that's how we go about it. But it is challenging. It is very challenging. Like I personally have cried many times over like some of the things that we've been on the receiving end of, and sleepless nights and stress. But I guess this is, as they say, like this is the business that I chose.
You've said something in there that I wanted to go back to, which is the fact that you can tell in advance whether that child's going to be successful or not. I'm saying child because I think that the heartstrings get tugged a little bit more when you're talking about child, even though, to be honest with you, at least they've got the whole career and life ahead of them to make other choices. If somebody's an actor that nobody wants to hire anymore, then that becomes a lot more difficult because what are their options? They only ever learn one thing really well. So what are those red flags? What are those things that you could say in advance when you meet somebody that's not going to work? Is it based on them or is it based on what your industry is turning around and requiring? Because things do change, but they only really change when an outlier goes through and changes it. Let me just give an example before you give your answer. So for instance, we'd never had a all black cast making $1 billion until Black Panther came through for Marvel. And then suddenly it was like, oh, there's money there. Then maybe we should consider looking at it from a different set of lenses. It wasn't completely, we had Martin Freeman and so on in it as well. So there has to be a trend of something coming through for things to be seen as well as profitable. What is the scope? What are the red flags? And what would be your advice be to somebody who's having a problem getting through?
Sure. So what I meant, like, in terms of success, there's certain things that if you do, it's almost guaranteed you're not going to be successful. So, like, to be bit clearer on this. So, I'll tell you firstly how to match, like, to just think that they're going to be successful. But ultimately, so let me break this down into two parts. The things that absolutely that they will not be successful at poor attitude, disrespectful, ego driven, not really about it for the right reasons, probably the wrong whys. Like they're seeking or chasing fame, not the actual enjoyment of the process. You're almost guaranteed that those people are not going to be successful. Whether now this also in terms of parents and their child, if they're late, if they're disrespectful, if they're rude, if they're demanding, if they present themselves as someone who people would not want to spend time with, it's almost a guarantee that they will not be successful. The misconception that the stage moms, the dance moms, the helicopter parents, that they're going to do better, it's not true at all. Nobody wants to work with them. And there's so many kids who want to get into this that they're not going to go with the kids that are not really, really, really rock solid and in terms of easy to work with. And you hear this all the time. Oh, we love that kid. His parents are great to work with. So that's obviously like the steps and the red flags as to how they're not going to be successful are those. They're rude, disrespectful, late, things like that. The way now you never know if someone is going to be like successful, but there are like things that you look for that absolutely you kind of indicate that you think that they could be. So and it all does come down to attitude. It really does. And obviously like a parent's like, oh, this is going to be really fun. They really want this. We want to support them in this. And then you're like, and then you meet the kid and the kid say, yep, I'm doing acting classes. I'm watching YouTube clips. I'm self-driven and I really like this. Now, obviously they've got to be a bit older for that to be the case, or I'm watching YouTube videos and practicing accents just because they like this, or I'm in the school play and all these things. That is, they're doing it because they enjoy it. They're going to almost always do better. Now, the same also applies for the grown-ups. It's attitude. There's a charisma, there's a charm. And it's almost hard to articulate how, but it's like, man, that guy's good. And I'll give you an example. We have a comedy division and some of the comedians we represent are just unbelievable. And I saw a comedian that I've now become friends with, and I just know, besides the fact that he's unbelievable and he's hilarious, I just know he's going to be the next biggest thing. I just know. I'm certain. We don't actually represent him. I've become friends with him. Sorry. We represent a bunch of other comedians. I don't represent this one. But his name is Andrew Hamilton.
Okay.
And I don't represent him, but we'd like to get him. But the truth is that this guy is so good. You just know. And we do represent another guy called Nick Trapani, great comedian, great stand-up, who I also believe I have the same faith in. And we do represent him. And I absolutely knew when I first met him, this guy's going to do well. He's just got what it takes to do well. It's almost hard to articulate. It almost is like you just need to be doing it for so long that you build a sense for it. But the attitude, are they doing the work? Are they on time? Are they trying their hardest? Are they resilient? Are they just like, oh, I didn't miss out on that one, on to the next? They're not devastated and falling apart because they missed out. Those attitudes, those set of attitudes really determine how successful someone's going to be.
That's fascinating, because the problem for almost every single artist or entertainer is it's like a fish looking for water. What about this water you're talking about? I've looked everywhere. I can't find it. You're in it. No, that's too obvious. It's really hard to be able to judge yourself with the same lens as people from the outside. What you might see as beneath you might be exactly what they need you to do. And what you might see as being boring and repetitious is exactly what they want more of. And so you've got to be able to get feedback and not take it personally. And also the area I wanted to get into just on this line of conversation is typecasting. So when you've managed to get through, you are perfect for the role. Everybody loves you, even become an international star on the back of that. It's almost like nobody else will touch you and give you a second chance to do something else with your range. So many people don't make it from child star to adult star because they're only ever seen as that. And many adult stars aren't allowed to do anything differently. One of the most fascinating conversations I heard in recent times was an interview with Daniel Radcliffe, who played Harry Potter. who has done everything but Harry Potter since, including being naked in Equus on stage, just so to distance himself as possible. So he'll take on the most horrible or difficult roles. So even though you still go, that's Harry Potter, you've got to say, you know what? The guy could be the next Wolverine in Marvel. You never know. So
Yeah.
how do you advise people on that particular thing? Once you've had a breakthrough, do you have a range of options? And should you even take those range? Or should you just say, you know what, this is working. It's not broken. Don't fix it.
Well, I have two stories here for you that I'll tell quickly. Firstly, I mean, Daniel Radcliffe, there's always perennial rumors, isn't there, that he's going to be in, there's going to be some new Harry Potter reboot of some sort. There's constantly a perennial, like, rumor mill there. So I guess he can always return if he chooses. So he has that he has that, right? So the thing is, he has it. So he has the certainty of knowing if they did do anything, he has the first right of refusal. So that enables him the ability. I'm going to tell you a story about a girl that we represented. She was a young woman at Hunter. Now, she was offered the role of being a Power Ranger. Now, believe it or not, Power Rangers are, she'd been to, she had formal acting training, the most prestigious school for acting in the country. She'd only recently graduated. She'd never done anything else professionally. And she was offered to be a Power Ranger. And it was a really big deal. Like, I remember it was one of the first big things that I was part of. And I was already counting my commission because the money was pretty impressive. There was merchandising. There was all sorts of amazing things that she would have made a lot of money, more than most professional actors would ever see in their first kind of things. But she was deeply worried that she wouldn't be taken seriously as an actress if she did Power Rangers. And to be honest, I was quite young in the industry myself at the point. Like, I was quite pretty new to the industry, only a few years in. And I was like, I don't think it matters. I said, I really don't. I said, get runs on the board and then we can work from there. Get money in the bank and then you got flexibility. But then, now she turns that role down. She turned it down and it was a big money role. Since then, with us, she only booked a few small television commercials and nothing else. And she's now moved on to another agent. And I do genuinely hope she does well. But the point being is you can work around the fear of typecasting, or you can just go and just seize it. And I have a personal friend who was Spartacus. He was a television show Spartacus. And, he's obviously, a lot of people have sort of seen him as being, the Spartacus guy, but he's still done heaps of other stuff. And what's not necessarily wrong with doing that thing. Matthew McConaughey famously refused to do any rom-com, turned down about $15 million in rom-coms because he wanted to do dramatic stuff. So he was the rom-com guy. He didn't want to do rom-coms anymore. So he took a huge risk, refused to take anything. And then when the producers and directors of these dramatic films, were like, well, you're risky, he took enormous pay cuts. And I'm pretty sure that, like, Dallas Buyers Club, he was on like $1 million, but he'd been offered like $7 million to do a rom-com like 18 months earlier. And I may be mistaken on the numbers, but the sentiment is correct. So I think you've just, it's not a fear you necessarily need to have, but it is something you need to be aware of. Like, you need to be, okay, what are my bigger goals? Is this a stepping stone or is this the stone? And will I land on this and never have anywhere to jump? And, you hear this too about people like, Kylie Minogue was on Neighbours famously. Do you think Kylie Minogue's worried about being typecast from Neighbours?
But Kylie, and I'm a massive, crazy Kylie fan. Kylie, I didn't particularly like on Neighbours, and I certainly didn't like her when she first started her musical career. It's only when she went head to head with Madonna music-wise, you started going, this girl is incredibly talented, and she is an international star in her own right. It took a number of years to be able to shake that. And I think she did, was it The Delinquent she did as a movie? Before she...
I don't remember.
It was like a rebel teenage type movie she did. And it was the last time I think she did a movie relating to being an actress. But she managed to carve out a legend as an entertainer. in her own right. There's not many people that are able to, first of all, go from acting to being from acting to being a singer, or singer to being an actor, even though the two roles are very, very similar. Certainly going through the process of becoming an actor from a very young age. When you go to talent school and your acting school, you do the whole thing, musicals, everything. But I think that when you look at someone like Robin Williams, who is an outlier, the guy is one of the best stand-up comics that's ever lived. One of the best TV show guests you could ever have in a podcast or a TV show. The guy was crazy funny and so inventive. But when he started doing really dark roles, Eddie Izzard is the same as this, but more so Robin Williams, his dark roles are incredible. That's what he won Oscars for. And the flip side of being a comedian and being a villain are actually quite similar. And so it's that choice, I think, that makes it really difficult. You need to have somebody outside of you as a mentor or an agent or a manager or an advisor who's able to turn around and see the bigger picture. Now, we can't read life unless we see it backwards. But my personal advice for your friend who turned down the Power Rangers would have been do Power Rangers and then do some crappy roles, knowing that you've got food in the fridge to be able to get your credibility back. I think that light that you see in the sky sometimes is a one-off, and you can get it several times in your lifetime. But look at the changes you have to go through to get that. Sometimes by the time you get it, it's not something you want anymore. I grew up wanting to be on MTV. I appeared on MTV a couple of times as a guest at events. I ran radio stations. I did a little bit of TV breakfast shows and stuff like that. I never got my big breakthrough as a TV host. And to be honest with you now, it's not something. I've got a nice mixture of author, live shows, podcast with cameras to find the right mix for me. I think for everybody, you're going to find the one that suits you and take advice as much as you can. But remember, you're a long time dead. So anything between now and then is part of the adventure, good, bad, and ugly. And if the pandemic comes along, find out where Adam Jacobs is, because he's already worked out where Club Med's going to be, and he's going to get the best ride possible.
Yeah, with low budget Club Med.
Anything other than being locked in your house with a family that doesn't want to see you anymore, that's one thing. We're going to shift that on that note about doing TV shows to you. You have got this incredible opportunity where it doesn't surprise me because you know the right people, you're great on screen, and you've got a lot to say. You've got your own TV show coming up. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I have been offered a television show. It's called Are You Not Entertained? And basically I'll be interviewing industry insiders and talent about how they got into the industry. And, this is an interesting one. It's a small network, but I'm really excited about it. And I'm just so pumped. Like it's so different and surreal to anything I've ever done. I've been going in and doing, guest spots on the news for some time now and being a subject matter expert on things. And then they sort of sat me down and said, we'd like to give you a show. And it was pretty surreal. I actually had been out the night before with a bunch of comics for the Melbourne International Comic Festival. So I was a little bit hungover, and then they offered me this show and I was like, oh, yep, great. But I'm a bit hungover. Can I think about it? And then they was like, no, I'll take it. And then, look, it's going to be really exciting. It's not something I've done before. It's probably the only type of thing in talent I would do, because nobody who is talent wants their agent to be competing against them. It's the biggest faux pas in the industry when an agent's putting themselves up for jobs against their talent. So this type of role, this show that I'm doing, is a talk show role, doing interviews in studio, and I'm pretty excited about it. And the great bit is, it's probably the only thing I would be able to do that wouldn't annoy my talent, because my talent will be on there. And I think that's probably the best part. I'm really pumped about it. It's going to be great. So it's going to be on the Ticker Network, which is actually, I think, 12 countries. And I'm really, really excited about it.
Congratulations on that. One of the things that came to me years ago was when I was hosting big events, because Dubai is an incredible place where the global events come to be launched. So you've got all the big companies doing their worldwide events, and you've got all the big things like the Olympics and cricket and rugby. All the things come here. And I was hosting many, many of them. And then at one point, this is before the pandemic, I wasn't getting the same roles. I was competing and not getting them. And it was a question of price. I wanted to be paid what I deserved to be paid, but people wanted to do it for a fraction of that. And it was a price fight. And I was getting frustrated about it because I was seeing a lot of roles disappear and they did the job badly. But at the same point, I'm going, hold on, my track record is this. And my wife said to me, Dave, you got to stop doing this. She said, you got to stop being the star and start being the mentor, start being the coach. So I reinvented myself to be in that position you're talking about. And this whole podcast and the work I do and my Thought Leaders Accelerator program, the Industry Icon, is about not being the star. It's about using what knowledge I have to be able to get the next generation of people to be able to go through. And the weird thing is, and this is true for any industry, it doesn't matter whether you're working in logistics or catering or anything else, when you position yourself as a mentor and you do it really well, you also do become the star. But your competition is different because you're not saying, look at me, I'm great. You're saying, let me help you. And when the success stories come out, which are the people you've grown to be at a really high level, a little bit of that stardust drops into you. You may share it with people. You may see it. You may put it in your wallet and just keep it there because it makes you feel better. But it's a really good position for you to be in, because I think that what it will do is it'll position you to be accessible to a lot more people. And there'll be a generation who will be able to get knowledge from what you're sharing on camera that will inspire them to find their own journey, maybe to meet you one day, maybe to join your agency one day, but certainly in different industries will hear your words and go, you know what, I watched that and it made a big difference. So I congratulate you on that. I think it's an incredible opportunity. And I know that you're going to knock it out the park. And I find it fascinating to hear the title of the show, Are You Not Entertained?, which was said by Russell Crowe in Gladiators, a fellow Australian.
Yes.
There's no better title for a show than that. I knew it.
I wrote the title, and I haven't checked for trademarks for television shows for it yet. So that the legal team of the network is doing that. So fingers crossed.
Well,
you can always get around that.
This out. We'll chop this bit out so nobody else can start getting the copyright on the website on the back of it.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling about that? Are you excited about it? Who's going to be on the show? And when do you start filming?
Really excited. We've got a bunch of guests, but I think a few of them, we've got some comedians coming on board. Hammer, who I mentioned earlier. We've got a guy called Jeff Joseph, who's an industry veteran in Australia, been a talent manager for about 50, 60 years. He managed bands like, he literally, you name he managed the Seekers, and for a minute he managed Barry Gibb, and he just talked about him managing the Bee Gees at one point, and all sorts of amazing stories. And he's just full of these incredible stories. So he's our first guest. And then we've got some comedians, and then we've got some behind the scenes people too. So some casting directors, some, people who don't necessarily get seen, telling some crazy stories about the industry. And then, I've only got the first, I don't know the ones after that are like, that's not really my problem, but the appointment guys do all that. But I'm really genuinely excited about it. Like, I think it's going to be so much fun. I'm a little nervous, I will be honest. It's outside of my comfort zone, but that's a good thing. That builds, it builds resilience, being out of your comfort zone. And so I'm looking forward to it. I think you can hear me sort of stammering a little when I think about it, because that's the nerves and butterflies actually kicking in. But I'm really looking forward to it. It's something, that I have not really thought that I would ever do as well. So, we'll see how we go.
Well, my phrase for all this is jump and grow wings on the way down. I think you make a calculated risk. You look at the opportunity, you look around at the competition, you realize that they won't take that step. You already work in entertainment. You've done it your entire life. You're surrounded by entertainers. You've seen the good and the bad and the ugly. You know what they do right, what they do wrong. And you also know that you'll grow on the way up to the top. I can't see anything that could stop you getting to the level that you want to get. And I've only known you for a short time. The only question is, I'm going to throw this at you as our final question today. How will you deal with it if people say you suck? And the nature of entertainment and social media is there will be haters. Over to you, Adam Jacobs.
Yeah. I've been dealing with haters for a long time, to be honest. Being a talent agent being the CEO of Bubblegum Casting has people who hate me, literally parents whose kids weren't successful, or parents whose kids didn't get signed, or so I do take it personally, but I do have some tactics and strategies around what I'm going to do. And there will be people who say that I suck, but I've worked out already that I'm kind of going to just basically just, roll with the punches. My wife still loves me. My friends still love me. My business is not going anywhere. And it's a story, isn't it? And I'll probably, to be honest with you, if it's really, really bad and I do suck, I'll probably know. I'm my own harshest critic. They're always going to be able to tell me, oh, look at this weasel looking guy. I get it. I already think that. So I'll probably pile on so much of myself that I'll read other stuff like, oh yeah, he's right. I am crap. So, so that's probably how I'll do it. But it's a good question. And I'll, maybe I'll come back and on the show and I'll let you know.
Well, I look forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing your show. I know you'll make it rock. And you know what? There's only one Adam Jacobs. There's not actually. I looked up in LinkedIn. There's lots of different ones, but there's only one you.
Yeah.
And so with that,
right,
you will find the challenge that I have in that when people look for Dave Crane, they often look for David Crane, and the name that comes up is the guy who wrote Friends. He's one of the
yeah.
So therefore, he gets some of my press, like people wanting to book him for speaking gigs. But at the same time, I'm sure I get plenty of his. And you will own Adam Jacobs, and you will own Are You Not Entertained? And you've got a welcome space to come back on this show anytime. Adam, it's been a joy and a pleasure to chat with you. I'm looking forward to seeing how your star rises. And also, when I talk to you next time, whether you have yourself on the front of your talent agency website, just at the side saying, and if you want me, is how much it's going to cost you. Challenge for an...
I'm already on the front cover of the website as the CEO.
In that case, the only thing that's missing is a big star around your head as you go on TV. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for spending time with us. And I'll leave all the links for people to connect with you on this. And I can't wait to send me the details as soon as the show's up and running. And I'll be watching. And I may be a critique, but in a very kind way, like you would be to me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, my friend.
Brilliant. And so there you go. Adam Jacobs, incredible talent, a guy who's been behind the scenes for such a long time, growing very successful agencies across Australia and, of course, doing global work now. And this is a fascinating element about becoming a thought leader now in a position where he's being asked for his opinions and been given his own TV show. You couldn't write it better than that. And I don't think of many people who could do it and deliver it better than Adam Jacobs. So it's a pleasure having him on the show. We've got some more incredible, talented people coming up in future episodes. Send us your comments, subscribe for future ones, and look forward to catching you soon on the next episode of Speak on Stage. Thank you for tuning into another insightful episode of Speak on Stage with Dave Crane. We hope you found today's conversation inspiring, packed with valuable insights to help you to amplify your presence on stage too. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more inspiring speakers just like yourself. Remember, the stage is your platform to shine. And with the right tools and mindset, you can captivate any audience anywhere. So keep honing your craft, refining your message, and never shy away from the spotlights. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll dive even deeper into the world of public speaking at the performance. Until then, keep speaking, keep shining, and keep making an impact. This is Dave Crane signing off. See you next time in the Speak on Stage.